You ever feel like you're waiting on something for years? Waiting for a change, waiting for a sign, waiting for God to finally do something in your life? Well, imagine waiting 38 years. That's how long the man in today's gospel was waiting for healing. 38 years. And then, Jesus walks in. Today, we're diving into John 5:1-18, the healing at the Pool of Bethesda. We'll unpack the deep meaning behind this miracle, why Jesus chose this man, and what it teaches us as Catholics about faith, healing, and even the Eucharist. First, let's hear the scripture itself. This is from the Gospel of John, chapter 5, verses 1-18, from the New Revised Standard Version Catholic Edition. After this, there was a festival of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now in Jerusalem by the sheep gate, there's a pool, called in Hebrew Bethesda, which has 5 porticos. In these lay many invalids, blind, lame, and paralyzed. One man was there who had been ill for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had been there a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be made well?" The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. And while I am making my way, someone else steps down ahead of me." Jesus said to him, "Stand up, take your mat, and walk." At once the man was made well, and he took up his mat and began to walk. Now that day was a Sabbath. So the Jews said to the man who had been cured, "It is the Sabbath. It is not lawful for you to carry your mat." But he answered them, "The man who made me well said to me, 'Take up your mat and walk.'" They asked him, "Who is the man who said to you, 'Take it up and walk'?" Now the man who had been healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had disappeared in the crowd that was there. Later Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, "See, you have been made well. Do not sin anymore, so that nothing worse happens to you." The man went away and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had made him well. Therefore the Jews started persecuting Jesus, because he was doing such things on the Sabbath. But Jesus answered them, "My Father is still working, and I also am working." For this reason the Jews were seeking all the more to kill him, because he was not only breaking the Sabbath, but was also calling God his own Father, thereby making himself equal to God. The Gospel of the Lord. Welcome back to the channel, where we explore Scripture through a Catholic lens. If you've ever struggled with waiting on God, or wondered why Jesus does things the way he does, this story is going to open your eyes in a whole new way. Let's break it down. Alright, so let's set the scene. Bethesda was a pool where the sick would gather, hoping for a miracle. There was a belief that when the water was stirred, the first person in would be healed. Imagine the desperation, people waiting, hoping, trying to be the first one in. And then, Jesus walks in and chooses just one man. Why? Well, first, notice what Jesus asks. "Do you want to be made well?" At first, that seems like a strange question. Of course, the man wants to be healed. But Jesus isn't just talking about his body. He's asking about his soul. The man responds by saying he has no one to help him into the water. He sees healing as something that depends on his own effort. But Jesus is about to show him something greater. Healing comes from God alone. Jesus doesn't say, "Okay, let me help you into the water." Instead, he commands him, "Stand up, take your mat, and walk." And instantly, the man is healed. Now, here's where things get really interesting. The Pharisees freak out, not because a man was miraculously healed, but because he was carrying his mat on the Sabbath. Instead of seeing the miracle, they only see a rule being broken. And this is where Jesus drops a massive bombshell. He says, "My Father is still working, and I also am working." For the Jews, this was huge. Jesus wasn't just saying God was his Father in a poetic way. He was making himself equal to God. This is one of the clearest moments in Scripture where Jesus outright claims his divinity. Okay, so what does this story mean for us as Catholics? Well, a few things. Healing comes from Jesus, not from our own efforts. Just like the man at Bethesda thought he needed to get himself into the water, Sometimes we think we have to fix ourselves before coming to God. But Jesus doesn't wait for us to be good enough. He meets us where we are. This miracle foreshadows baptism and the Eucharist. The Pool of Bethesda was seen as a place of cleansing, but true spiritual healing comes through the sacraments. When Jesus tells the man, "Do not sin anymore," he's showing us that true healing isn't just physical. It's about our souls. The Pharisees were obsessed with the law, but they missed the lawgiver standing right in front of them. Jesus is showing us that mercy, healing, and salvation are more important than rigid rules. So how do we apply this to our daily lives? Stop waiting for the perfect moment to come to Jesus. If you're struggling, don't wait until you have it all together. Go to Him now. Trust in the sacraments. If you need healing, go to confession. Go to the Eucharist. Jesus still works miracles today. Recognize Jesus in your life. Sometimes we're so focused on what God hasn't done yet, we miss what He is doing. Take time to thank Him. So, what's the takeaway? Jesus heals, Jesus saves, and Jesus is God. Simple as that. But the real question is, will we recognize Him when He comes to us? If this video helped you see this gospel in a new way, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let's keep diving deeper into our faith together. Until next time, God bless.